Hello, GLC. So now we're on lesson 7.3. We're going to be looking at rectangles with fractional side lengths. So this is just continuing on our progression of renaming mixed numbers and then multiplying them. The objective for today is multiply mixed numbers to find the areas of rectangles with fractional side lengths. All right, guys, let's get started. Okay, here is the objective in a more targeted form, so please follow along with me. I will be able to use models so that I can multiply mixed numbers and find the area of rectangles with fractional sides. Now, to warm up a bit, we're going to proceed the problem of the day. Again, get your notebook out. Please provide the proper heading. And remember that after you do these calculations at the end of the lesson, you're going to transfer your information, your calculations, onto a Google Classroom document, which can be found on our website, so that I can look at your work and be able to provide comments. Frida bought a bag of 30 clementines for $6. How much money did she pay per clementine for each clementine? Remember to pause the video as you go ahead and solve the problem. All right, on to our math vocabulary. We have about 6 words, terms that I want you guys to think about before moving into the lesson. The first is, what multiplication strategy or algorithm are you most comfortable with? The lattice method, area model, traditional method. Take time to look at the models or images here that correspond to the vocabulary word or math algorithm and see which one best suits you. Which one do you feel most comfortable with? Okay, moving forward, the next 3 words are a review of terms that we have looked at in the past. So here we have mixed numbers again. You have your whole number part and then a fractional part. Together, you have a mixed number. The next word, renaming. If you look to the right, you'll see an image that shows you how to rename mixed numbers to improper fractions. And then the bottom of that image shows how to take an improper fraction and rename it to a mixed number. Please take time to review both images. Below that, you have area of rectangles, And in this image, you'll see that you have two factors here, which would be the length times width, as you see the formula detailed for you. The length is 3 out of 4. The width is 5 out of 8. So you're going to find the area of this rectangle by multiplying 3 out of 4 times 5 out of 8. A note, remember that when multiplying fractions, you do not need common denominators. Okay, moving on to foods around the world, and this is one of my personal favorites. Here we have what's known as fish and chips. It's actually a really popular dish here in the United States. Its origin, meaning where it came from, was originally from the United Kingdom. And what it is just usually a cod, a fish called a cod, that is then fried with batter and then served with a chip, which is a potato. It can come in the form of a French fry or a potato chip. And then you have the tartar sauce with a little sprinkle of lemon. It makes for an excellent treat. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, let's go back to a little bit of math practice here. So for today's mental math, make sure you provide the correct heading and number your paper from 1 to 3. For number 1, 1 foot is how many inches? Number 2, 6 feet is how many inches? And number 3, a mixed number here, 4.5 feet is how many inches? Remember that in problems 1, 2, and 3, you're doing conversions. Okay, now moving on to the main lesson. So in lesson 7.3, Miss Alston, Long Branch teacher, is going to guide us through this lesson in this video that she's made. So please open your notebook, find yourself a quiet place where you can listen to the video, and then remember to pause it as she tells you or instructs you to do any activities.
Hello, boys and girls. This is Miss Alston working with you today on lesson 7-3. Today, you will be multiplying mixed numbers to find the areas of rectangles with fractional side lengths. All right, so let's get to it. In today's math message, we are to find the area of the rectangle that you see on the screen. We know that to find the area of any rectangle, our formula is area equals length times width. But what's different about our rectangle that we have here in our dimensions, our length is 8 1/2 feet and our width is 5 1/2 feet. So this makes it a little bit trickier in that we need to really use the distributive property where we distribute out our mixed numbers in order to solve this problem. This easiest way to distribute is to actually create partial products, and we're going to use an area model. So I drew a line going right down, but not in the middle, because if I look at my side length over here at 8 1/2, we know that with rectangles, opposite sides are congruent. 8 is a lot larger than 1/2. So I'm going to make this part right here my value of 8, and this small part right here is 1/2. And I'm going to do the same thing for the 5 1/2. I'm going to split up my rectangle going across this way. Okay, and now I can start writing out what I have. So 5 is for this part of my rectangle, plus 1/2 right here is going to give me my 5 1/2 that's equal to on this side. And same thing for my 8 1/2. If this is 8 right here, and I put my 1/2 right here, 8 plus 1/2 gives me my 8 1/2. So it's still the same length, still the same width. Now we need to find the area of each of these 4 rectangles. So I'm going to start off with the largest rectangle that we have right here, which is 5 times 8. I know that 5 times 8 is equal to 40. The next one I'm going to work on is the rectangle down below here. 8 times 1/2, which is really half of 8. So if I want to show my work over here, I can do 8 times 1/2 equals, and when we have a whole number that we're multiplying, you just need to put a 1 below for your denominator in order to keep it still that whole number. So 8 times 1 is 8, 1 times 2 is 2, and 8 halves, which is 8 divided by 2, gives us our answer, which is 4. So this rectangle right here is equal to 4. Now let's take a look at the rectangle right here where we have 1/2 times 5. So I'm going to start off with my 5 times 1/2. So 5 times 1 is equal to 5. And 1 times 2 is 2. So here we have now an improper fraction, which we want to convert into our mixed number, very similar to what we did for our warm-up. So 2 can go into 5. I know 2 whole times because 2 times 2 is 4. And I have 1 left over. So that 1 left over is your numerator, and we always keep our denominator. So we have 2 1/2. So up here in this rectangle, I'm going to write 2 1/2. Now the last one we need to find is actually a square that we have. That's our last part of the rectangle to solve. So I'm going to multiply 1/2 times 1/2. And we multiply our numerators first, and then our denominators, and we get 1/4. So right now I have all together, change the color just to make it a little bit easier to see. I'm going to add up 40. Oh, I need to put my 1/4 here. There we go. That way you can see each box what we have. So now I'm going to add 40 plus 4 plus 2.5 plus 1/4. Now, first thing I want to do is add up all my whole numbers. So when I add up all my whole numbers, 40 plus 4 is 44, plus 2, I get 46. And now I have two fractions that I need to take a look at. So my two fractions I have are 1/2 and 1/4. And we know that we cannot add those two fractions together because we have different denominators. So with unlike fractions, we need to find, you got it, a common denominator. So I'm going to find my common denominator. So that's very easy. 2 is a factor of 4. So 4 is going to be my common denominator. So I'm going to write it down right below here. And I know that 2 times 2 equals 4. So whatever you do for your denominator, you do the same for your numerator. So this is a 2. And because I have the same denominator here, my numerator stays the same. So I add this together, and I have 3/4. And then I'm going to add my 3/4 right here. So the answer that I have all together is going to be 46 and 3/4. And because we're finding area, we got to make sure that we always label. So our label is in feet. And because it's area, feet times feet, is going to be feet squared that we have for our final answer. All right, so just double check to make sure that yours matches with mine right here. And we are going to go back to our boxes and head to number 4, where we're going to start working on the problem that you have for your number 2. So number 2, so math message is really number 1, and number 2 is right into your book. So let's go to the right arrow and go right to the problem. Number 2, a typical sheet of printer paper in the United States measures 8.5 inches by 11 inches. What is the area of a typical sheet of paper? So if I want to show what this looks like, let me change the color. Actually, I'll keep it. So if this is my printer paper that I have right here, this is usually 8.5 by 11. Okay. So I have 8.5 for my width, and my length, I'm going to put 11 right over here. So there's two ways you can go about solving it. We can use the area model using the rectangle that we have here, or we can distribute. So let's use the area model just to practice what we did in our math message. So my 11 is going to stay as is because I don't have a mixed number. I just have a whole number. But my 8.5 I want to break up. So I'm going to break up my 8.5 and put a line down here. I'm going to change the color real quick. So this part is going to be 8. And then right here, I have 1/2. So now we can go ahead and multiply. 11 times 8 gives me 88. And now I want to multiply 11 times 1/2. So I'm going to do my work right over here. So I write 11 times 1/2. And 11 times 1 is 11. And 1 times 2, because I'm going to put my 1 underneath, is 2. Again, I have an improper fraction, and I want to convert it into a mixed number. So 2 can go into 11 5 times evenly, because 5 times 2 is 10, which means I have 1 as a remainder. So my remainder goes as my numerator, and I put my 2 down. So I have 5 and 1/2 for this part of my rectangle. Now I can add the 2 together right here. So if I add 88 plus 5 and 1/2. I know 88 plus 5 gives me 93. So I'm going to write 93 right over here. And then I'm going to add the 1/2 along with the 93. And this is in inches. And then I'll put my square because it's area. And the number model is basically taking your dimensions that you started off with. So we started off with 8.5 and we started off with 11. So the area model is going to be 8 times 11 equals 93.5. And that's your number model.